Good day. Good day. Hayom Yom. 23:7. Very interesting Hayom Yom. A story here. In a reply to a Yechidus query, someone asked the Rebbe a question in Yechidus in the winter of 1874 to 75. My grandfather said, the Rebbe Rashab said to, the Rebbe Marash said to my father, the Rebbe Rashab, as follows. The Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse, is called the animal soul, not because it is necessarily a brute animal. At times, it may be a fox, the most cunning of beasts, and great wisdom is needed to perceive its machinations. At other times, it may clothe itself in the garb of an earnest, straightforward, humble tzaddik, possessing the fine traits of character. Clever, right? They call him in Yiddish the kluger. The animal soul is called the kluger, the clever one. The animal soul manifests itself in each person according to his individual character. One person may suddenly experience a powerful longing to study Hasidus or to meditate deeply on some Hasidic concept. The truth is, however, that this is nothing more than the Yetzer Hara's counsel and the animal soul's machinations to prevent him from engaging in the avoda of davening or similar activity. So take this, now he's talking to all of us, as a general principle, and remember it always. Here's the principle. Any matter that is effective towards or actually leads to active avoda and is confronted with opposition of any sort, even the most noble, that opposition is the scheming of the animal soul. So here's the punchline. My father, who was hearing this vort from his father, concluded, until then I had not known that there can be a pious animal soul, let alone a Hasidic animal soul. All right. Halavai, we should have such animal souls and be able to recognize them. Lessons in Tanya. Interesting word, no? Page 924.
This goes back to what we were learning about the importance of mitzvahs ma'asiyos.
Absolutely. The bottom line is the bottom line. On the other hand, there are times when a person is commanded to pray and leave the world of Maisa and daven. So it can go that way also, and a person is obligated to learn. So you've got to know. But and remember, he doesn't, and it's interesting, he doesn't say mitzvahs ma'asiyos, he says avoida. Whatever the avoida is, the avoida of the moment, anything that distracts you from that which the halacha, the Shulchan Aruch wants from you at that moment, comes from the animal soul. Okay, Tanya. Look at the Amorim. Bottom of page Pei Gimel. Vehine Makan, from here, where are we? We are in the midst of delving into that which is inherently undelvable, according to the Alter Rebbe himself, the yichud of the Eibishter, the singular, the oneness of the Eibishter, in that there is ein od milvado, nothing besides him. So with this, from here, we can understand something of the unintentional mistake that was made by some of the Chachamim, behenehem, in their eyes, Hoye Hashem yechaper aba Adam, Hashem should forgive them, atone for them, for their sake. These are Chachamim. Sheshogu v'to'u, they unintentionally were mistaken. Be'iyunim, as they looked deeply, the Kisvei HaRizal, into the writings of the Rizal, V'havino inyan hatzimtzum, and they understood the inyan of the tzimtzum, covering over, right? They, the blockage of the sun, so the sun could be useful to us. They misunderstood, or they understood the inyan of the tzimtzum, Amuzkar Shom, which is mentioned in the Kisvei Arizal, Kipeshutoi, in its simple manner. That Hashem, Sha'akodesh Baruch Hu, Siluk Atzmoi, departed, is in the writings of the Arizal, the Tzimtzum is described by two words, Miut Usiluk. Miut means diminishing. Let's like our sunlight, right? He diminished the sunlight. But the second word is siluk. He departed. He did two things. Miut, departed, and siluk. And they misunderstood that word. Well, the word says departed. They misunderstood that meaning, the intention of that word departed, of Hashem's atzma umahusai, of God's, what his essence is and who he is and what he is, chas v'sholem. They misunderstood that siluk, that departure, ma'olam hazeh, that he actually departed from this world. Okay, but wait a minute. What's the point of it? Well, the point is he's mashkiach milamayla. He withdrew from the world, and he's mashkiach milamayla. Mashkiach is the same word of a mashkiach in a restaurant, right? Who makes sure that everything is going well, but doesn't get involved. Looks over everything, but is not, it doesn't have his fingers and hands at everything that's going on all the time. So that's how they took that word siluk. They took it literally, that he was departed from this world, and mashkiach milamayla, and he oversees it, so to speak, from above. B'hashgacha pratis, through his specific watching. I'll call hayitzurim, over all the formations, kulam, all of them, asher b'shamayim ma'al v'al mitochas, which are in the heavens above and in the earth below. Besides the fact that it's impossible to understand or to speak about the inyan of the tzimtzum in its simple manner, because tzimtzum, if you were to say departure and call it, that would mean when I siluk from you, if I depart from you, okay, I'm not there. But siluk is a metaphor. All of the words that we ascribe to Hashem, which are anthropomorphic, which the Torah gives us the ability to do that and the permission to do that, are metaphorical. So they teach us something, but they can't be understood in the same way that we understand them in the world which is in the world of metaphor, where the actuality is actually happening. So siluk can't be understood simply. You can't say it so simply, because tzimtzum, meaning siluk, is something that happens down here in the physical world. You can't ascribe that al HaKodesh Baruch Hu to HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Anivdal mehem ribe ravabes havdalos. The Holy One, blessed be He. Now here's an example right on the page of HaKodesh, meaning nivdal, and which I keep emphasizing this, that the word HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the word Kadosh means nivdal. There's some kind, but you can't undertake. That's an interesting one in itself. To say that Hashem is separate, can we understand that as something literal? No, because we have a contradictory understanding from Pesukim and Chazal that ain't od, there's nothing besides it. So obviously it's a mistake, although it's not an intentional mistake, it's a shigug, that's an unintentional mistake, to take it literally. Because Hashem, the Holy One, is nivd, that is al HaKodesh Baruch Hu, hanivdal mehem riben rababos, which the HaKodesh Baruch Hu is elevated, separated from them, from the world of the world down here below, to which we apply this metaphor, tens upon tens of thousands of levels, aden kates, without any end. Afgam zeis, and nevertheless, even taking that as a truth, that Hashem is different, separated. His realm is not like our realm The Pasuk says, "Ein machshavosai, machshavosechem." His thoughts are not thought. We talk about Hashem's thinking, but it's not like our thinking. So Afgam Zois, given all that, le bedas yidabru. If they had thought about it, it's hard to say this. These are chachomim, some chachomim. Le bedas yidabru. They're not speaking. I mean, this is a little crude translation. Intelligently, they're not speaking. They're not using their das. Because these who are chachomim who have made this error, they are what's called in the Gemara Shabbos, maminim b'nei maminim. All Jews are called believers, the sons of believers. And as we've said over the last couple of days, comprehending Hashem's unity is not within the level, not within the realm of comprehension. To get Hashem's reality, what Hashem is a function of Emunah. And these Chachamim are Yidden, well-cultivated Yidden. It's very interesting. I never quite noticed before. Here's a little Yetzer Hara from our Yom Yom, right? Look how refined this is, this mistake that they're making, right? And it's a mistake from layering on the metaphor, that the metaphor persists throughout all the levels of godliness, which this doesn't. It's only a metaphor. So this metaphor, I'm just saying this, but it's just hard not to say this, is coming from some other place, which we identified in the Yom Yom as the animal soul, the refined animal. These are very refined, holy people, learned people, who are maminim b'nei maminim. Yet they're not tapping into the emunah. That Hashem knows, the Holy One, blessed be He, we'll translate it literally, knows all the formations in this world, in this low world, and He watches over all of them. And this watching over and this knowledge that He has of Him, we quoted the Rambam yesterday, right? It's with a knowledge, remember the Rambam? It's with a knowledge of Himself that He knows everything. There is no other, right? So this hashgacha that He does is with a knowledge of Himself. And His knowledge of everything that is doesn't add anything to Him. That's what we learned yesterday. When we know something, we say, oh, I know that, and I didn't know it before. Thank you very much for enlightening me, right? Something is now known that wasn't known before. But that's not possible to say about Hashem, because He is the knower, the knowledge, and the thing known. And it's with the knowledge of Himself that He knows everything. And knowledge doesn't add anything to Him. Doesn't add any riboy v'chidush, doesn't add any multiplicity or anything new. Because I just said, because it's with that His knowing of everything is through a knowing of Himself. So and in Hashem, if you could say something, His essence, what He is, and His essence, and His das are all one. And in fact, this is what it says in the Zohar. Remember, they came to this conclusion, mistaken point of view, through their study of the Rizal. Now, the Rizal, of course, is based on earlier work, which is the Zohar. And let's look into the Zohar now and see what the source says. This is what's written in this is what is said in the Zohar, the place called the Tikkunim, Tikkun Nun Zayin, if you want to look it up. So the Zohar says, there's no place which is free of Him. So right away, you can't understand siluk as departing, literally, because there is no place which is free of Him. Not going upward and not going downward. No place is free of Him. Another section of the Zohar, Parshas Pinchas, it says, He holds or grasps in everything. He has a grasp into everything. And there is nothing which grasps into Him. And furthermore, the second part isn't written on the page. He encompasses all worlds and He fills all worlds. and there's nothing which goes outside of his domain, or nothing which is outside of his domain. And he fills everything. Ihu mekashir, he is tied, umeyachid, and unified, zina lezina, one kind to another. All the species, everything that exists, have an interrelatedness to each other. Everything that exists. Up above, above and below. And there's no relationship amongst the four Yesoidos. I'll explain that in a minute. Only through HaKodesh Baruch Hu. That he happens to be, that he is amongst them. All four. So we have four Yesodas: fire, earth, air, and water, right? Totally different in their manifestations. Yet they're all coming from the same singular source. And that's why they can relate to each other. We have, takes oxygen to make a fire, right? For a fire to burn, it needs to be oxygenated. So air and fire mixed together. To create steam, you apply heat to water. So many examples can be given. What I think is a useful word, interoperability of things which at their individual level are very separate realms and sometimes opposite, right? Water can put out fire. There's a state where they can't coexist, but we can also have hot water where they do coexist. So that ability for seemingly very distant and disparate things to coexist, the word here is kurva, it's like relatives, like your uncle and your aunt, for two people, for a male and female, there's the biggest one. Two opposites to interrelate to each other. It's only because Hashem benehem, because there's a Hashem amongst them. So that's the principle, that les kurba bedalad yisoidim. There's no relationship, there's no closeness amongst the four yisoides, fire, earth, air, and water, ela b'hakodesh baruch hu, except when they are, and only because they are part and parcel of the singular HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kadihu Benehu, when Hashem is amongst them. Ad kan l'shoinai, so to this is up to here is the language of the Zohar. So v'rotzu leimer, so the Alter Rebbe is now talking, when Zohar says, Leisman de tofes boi, he grasps in everything, he is there grasping, holding on into the deepest crevices of everything, but no one can grasp him. Leisman de tofes boi. So we're going to explain this at a little different angle. Yeah, nothing can grasp him. He grasps everything. This grasping we'll now talk about as a thought or a mental process. I can't grasp it. I can't get it. This means this is what the simple meaning. No one can grasp, no created being can grasp with their intellectual faculties. No, nothing from Mikol Sichlim, even the upper levels of Sichlim, the mind, the disembodied mindful spirits, the disembodied spirits up above who are called Sichlim, spiritual bodies who are only intellect. That no matter, and that's way up there, well, certainly in realms beyond where we live, and higher, that even those highest levels of Sichlim, of disembodied intellectual faculties, don't grasp that. Nothing can grasp his essence and what he is. Shel HaKodesh Baruch Hu, of the Holy One, blessed be He. And that's what we mean by Hashem being Nivdo, that Kodesh means Nivdo. Not that He's not present. He is intertwined in every subatomic particle and is not only intertwined with, He is the existence of every subatomic particle. So we say that He's above, or that He's distant, that only we mean in terms of hasaga, that nothing can grasp that at all. The Mehus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As is written in the Zohar, He's called the Stima, the called Stimin. Again, you could take this literally. He's the hidden of all hidden, meaning you'll never see anything from him because he's in a closet. But that would be a mistake, because everything you see is not only from him, but is an embodiment of him. So no thought can grasp you at all. And now back to earth, or at least lower worlds than the highest worlds. Even though he fills all worlds, it's not like the souls of a human being, the soul as it is embedded within the body. There's a soul in their body, two different entities, and the soul gets together with the body. That itself is a miracle which Hashem performs. Talk about fire, earth, air, and water not being innately looking like things that could interoperate. So soul and body, spirit and flesh are very big gaps, right? But the soul is grasped within the body and soul. To the extent that what goes on in the body affects the soul. The soul gets affected by the things going in the body. The soul feels something. In this case, he's pain. The soul feels pain from when the hand knocks into something. Like kriras, or if the temperature drops, there's a sense of coldness. Like chamimas, or warmth of the fire. Which is totally different than Hashem, and he uses the word HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Because he is Nivdal. Ani Hashem lo shenisi. That's a pasuk. I am Hashem, I don't change. We explicated that a few days ago. Hashem, the Holy One, blessed be He, isn't affected by any changes in this world. From summer to winter, or from night to day, from day to night. The Kasiv, as is written in the pasuk in Tillim, even darkness doesn't darken from you, of course, Hashem. And night, like day, illuminates. Why? Lefi, because here's the punchline of today. Lefi she'enu nitfas klal toich olamas, because he's not grasped, he's not contained. This glass case, I can contain it, right? I can get it and totally around it. Nothing gets around Hashem because he gets around everything. So he's ein a toifis klal toich olamas. He's not grasped at all within the worlds. Afal gab the mamali, even though he fills them. Even though he fills them, he's not contained by them. So filling is mamalik al-almin. He invests himself in every particle of creation, but at the same time, he's not contained in them. He's, the word that always in translation, transcends or encompasses all of them. Again, soiviv umamalik. And that's today's Tanya. Questions?
Could you just repeat that you said, please?
What I just said, sure. I was just explaining the last thing. That though Hashem is embedded in everything, and that's called the way that, well, I'll explain more differently. The way that Hashem manifests diversity, particularity, those are two different things. That things are different, diversity, and that things are separate. That carbon is not oxygen and fire is not water, right? That's a function of what what Chassidus and Kabbalah call mamalik al-almin. That's how he fills all worlds. But there's a deeper level in which he is equally present in everything in the same way. And the two words that are used in Chassidus to describe the way he's present in everything, he's mehava. He brings everything into being. The carbon molecule is equally in a state of being as you and I. It exists. Existence, equal plane. quality is different, right? Between the carbon molecule and us, that's mamali kol. But the equality is mahava, he brings everything into being, umachaya, and he enlivens everything. His life force is everywhere present, and his speaking the world into existence is everywhere present, equally. That sense of Hashem being equally operating in every aspect of existence is called soiviv kolam. That's his, because we don't see that. When we see a sunset, right, we say, wow, we can use any example for this, because what we're seeing is not Hashem directly, but his wowness, his ability to make those beautiful colors, that rainbow, differentiated one color from each other. That's mamali kolam. What we don't see is the hiddenness, and therefore soiviv kolam is called hidden. It's always associated with the word hidden, is his presence in the way that he is present equally in everything in order to mahava umachaya, to bring them into being and enliven them, and that's called soiviv kolam.
So to continue the question, it's good that you repeated it, thank you. If Hashem, not if Hashem, as Hashem is bringing everything into being, how could that also not be enlivening?
It is. Enlivening and bringing into being are the function of soiviv.
Processes going on, and I'm trying to distinguish them.
You mean the difference between enlivening and bringing into being? Is that what you're asking?
Something into being that enlivens.
Yeah, mahava umechaya. The difference between those two words, is that what you're asking?
Yes, or the process, the difference between the process of them. If he's bringing something into being, isn't that enlivening it from his essence?
Not everything has what we call life. It has existence. Life is things. The things. We'll use now metaphors, right? A metaphor. A grain of sand is in existence. It's not going through any stages of development. Stages of development are a function of something that has life. It starts as an embryo, and it goes, back and it goes through stages. So life is very dynamic, and being, is like, here I am.
So there's a big difference between a flower and a box of plastic.
Okay, that's a good example. The box of, I'll take that. In reality of realities, they have a sameness. This is probably a good example. They have a sameness. They're both are, A-R-E, right? But you're right. The flower has chayas, at least manifest chayas. The box, of course, also has chayas. All those molecules are coming and going, right? But just from the metaphorical point of view, like siluk, the part, we look at the things as they are, and as they are, the box is in a state of existence without change, and the flower is in a state of change constantly. Yeah. Okay?
Thank you.
Chayenka.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head. We do mitzvahs, and it's done with our body, but it's our neshama that's really having us do the mitzvah.
Driving it, yeah.
So basically, our neshama isn't really changed by being in a body, but does our existence and our mitzvahs or what our supposed and whatever, we don't really have an effect on Hashem, or does it?
No, we do, but we do and we don't. First of all, we don't, right? Ani Hashem lo shanisi. I'm Hashem, I haven't changed. But that's right. At the core, at Atzmos, Mahus. There's no change to Hashem. Hashem himself manifests change, doesn't he? He brings forth the Eser Sfiros. They weren't brought forth before. In fact, they dissolved into invisibility within his essence at the deepest levels. there are at least 3 that come to mind. The 10 hidden spheres, 10 esospheres blima, 10 spheres without any existence whatsoever because you can't see them, and esospheres bekli echad, 10 spheres in one vessel. Each of them are different levels of the retraction of multiplicity into singularity, right? So from that perspective, no, we don't touch it. But at those levels where it says, you be kind because I am kind, imitate his midos, certainly at the level of midos, where mido means measured. He's measured himself out. He's brought himself into appearance in the world of mamale with different characteristics. And that's through the faculty of tzimtzum. And he said, you know what? At that level, you can really affect me because you can do something that, this is hard to say, but true, that I can't do. You can remove the tzimtzum largely through your animal soul, use the power of the animal to scrape away the concealment of the tzimtzum. And when you do that, I will be revealed in ways that I had never been revealed before, and that's called Geula. So in that sense, we can affect him. We can affect the effulgence of the ore which comes from him, that ore should be a much deeper, more intense light, or min hachoshek, the light which comes from the darkness from peeling away the darkness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the light, the ore that's revealed, has always been in existence. That itself is not changed. We're just peeling the.
It's always been there. It always was. It's just being revealed. Remember, to be revealed, there has to be something who's going to reveal it. I mean, to whom it's going to be revealed, and that there is something who is going to be able to see it, and that it's revealed to them is a function of the tzimtzum. So here we go. The tzimtzum is for the sake of a revelation, not for the sake of a concealment. And ultimately, the tzimtzum is for the sake of being peeled away by our avodah. That's the whole purpose of avodah. Lasis lo yizborach dir b'tachtoinen, to make a dwelling place for Hashem, and this is not comprehensible at all. And I'm not saying this because we're all stupid. It's just not part of our comprehension that the light, Lifnei HaTzimtzum, will dwell and will be revealed down here below, so-called after the Tzimtzum. Geula Shlema, B'mheru v'yameinu mamish.
Okay, because Hashem wants us to do that rather than he himself doing it.
Yeah. Wants us, yeah. I mean, yes.
Or needs us, whatever.
Yeah. He says, make for me, well, he's the Mishkan. Asuli Mikdash. Make for me a holy temple. And my Shekhinah will dwell within it. And ultimately, it has always dwelt within it when Beis HaMikdash, both of them were extant. But ultimately, it will be existing within it in a revealed way. The Shekhinah, the point of origin of creation, will be shining in front of all of us. Elisheva, Krishna, yeah.
Just an addition, a quick add. Last year, when I tried to learn Hamshachai and Beis, the one thing I did learn was that the paintbrush affects the painter. He was saying that the painter moves his hand in a certain way because that's what the paintbrush is making him do. So, can you still hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because I'm getting a phone call. So that's the next level, just like the guf affects the neshama because of cold and hot, and sure. And our neshama affects Hashem, kind of the chain. So even the domem that doesn't move affects us.
Yes, absolutely. You really see this as if you've ever played any musical instruments, the instrument itself. A piano player will only want to touch this kind of piano or this kind of saxophone because the feel and the touch are something that are particularly, enamored is not the word. There's something resonant in this particular piano and its keys, and this particular horn and its sound. So the horn, the body, all the brush, the feel of it, the paint. The Sheva marshals on the feel of the paint, the consistency of the paint has something to do with how that's going to touch what you want to express. Yeah. The body affects the soul. Yeah. All right. Ubechein. I'm looking at my watch because I have davening is my next thing to do here. But we have to have Ubechein. Ubechein. Therefore, as a result of this wonderful conversation,
let's peel away the klipa.
Go ahead.
Let's peel away the klipa with our actions.
All right. Very good. Let's do it. Until we meet again, have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Toda rabah.